We are the two tired dads, talk talent and tech. Welcome. We have a cool program, but before we talk about that, we just discussed Christmas. And John, we're doing something for Christmas.
We are doing something for Christmas. We have got a really, really fun special coming up, and we've already got 20 confirmed VIPs who are going to be joining us on the day, and hopefully we'll have another 20 plus more people joining us as well. And it's just going to be a day full of fun. I hope fun and banter and games and talking about TA stuff.
Yeah, so our Christmas special is kind of like a Christmas for recruiters with a full day of streaming and talking about recruitment, HR development, and all fun stuff. It's close to Christmas, so it's going to be fun for sure. But still, inspiring discussion, some debates, and we're bringing an all-star game of all recruiters, influencers, and experts from all over Europe. So it's going to be so cool. So we're going to share the specific program very, very soon. But we're not doing that just for recruiters. Of course, recruiters are going to have fun, but we're doing that for children. And so we're partnering with a charity called SOS Children's Villages. Basically, they build villages for children, for brothers and sisters who are orphans to stay together. And we think that it could be really cool for everybody to leverage professionally our networks, and this is what we wanted to do and try to do something nice close to Christmas. So we're going to be raising money all day for the children. So we hope you will be there. And if you're interested, I'm just going to put the link in the comments on Crowdcast.
The other thing I was going to say is everybody that's listening, thank you for joining us again. It's so cool to have you joining us again. Feel free we want to make it as interactive as possible. So if you ever have any questions or you want to get involved in any way, feel free to write some questions or write in the comments. We'd be happy to hear from you. But today, what are we talking about today?
Well, today we're going a bit further than recruitment because we're going to talk about HR development. And why are we going to do that? Because the more and more we talk about recruitment, the more and more we realize that there's something that matters more than recruitment. Recruitment is just a means to an end, and that end is impact. How do we define impact? I mean, we've talked about that already. John, could you please tell us more about that?
Do you know what? Should we wait until we get into it? Because I'm pretty sure if we start this right this second, we'll end up keeping Jesse waiting for an hour.
All right, let's keep that for after. Yeah, we have, this is not the first time, but it's still very new, and we're very happy for her to share her insight with us. So please welcome Jessie Schoffer, inviting you to main stage now, Jessie.
Here we go.
Hey,
Jessie. It did. How are you?
Good, thank you. Cold here in Germany right now, and
yeah.
Close my curtain actually because it's freezing.
Yeah,
and how have you been? You were super busy a week or so ago, right? You were traveling.
Yeah, I was in Amsterdam doing a keynote at the recruitment conference by Matcha. It was actually fantastic. It was my first keynote. I was actually sick leading up to that. And of course, I ended up, getting the adrenaline and it pushed me through. And then I got sick again. So I'm just at the tail end of being sick again. I have another keynote on Thursday this week at the FemTech conference in Berlin. So I'm very thankful to have the spots, but I'm not happy that I'm sick for both of them or like trying to get over sickness.
It is just about getting the energy for the 1 hour of the keynote and then letting it go.
Anyone who has kids knows that sick season, they bring home everything and then you're just like constantly sick. So I live off aspirin complex. Don't recommend, not a doctor, but it works.
Yeah, mine over here is Doliprane.
Well, thank you for giving us some of your energy today. So for those who don't know Jessie yet, she's an expert at all things HR tech. She could tell us more about that every week, thanks to Stacked. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, Stacked. Yeah.
Stacked, where you reference all the best HR tech so that companies and HR departments don't have the hustle of going through all of them.
Yes.
Did I pitch that right too?
Yeah, that's exactly what we do. We have a centralized database of all the best tech out there, and we're trying to make it easier for HR professionals and everyone in the people space to discover the right tech for their business. And to do that, just like with recruitment, you need to source. So you need to have the biggest pool to look at to know what is the best. And so that's what we're trying to do, make it easy to at least start that discovery point, make sure you know the market, and make it as comprehensive as we can. We're growing it all the time. Okay. It's early.
Okay, well, let's talk about the market then. So what are the questions 2 weeks ago. What are the last trends on HR tech? I know that we've seen lots of discussions on LinkedIn about that.
Oh, yeah. So there's an interesting trend going around at the moment where people just ask LinkedIn what the best HR tech is, which sounds like fun and gets probably a lot of engagement. A lot of people saying what product is the best and, tagging things, but they forget that there's actually context required to know what the best tech is, and it's again like recruitment. And actually, my keynote at the recruitment conference last week actually went through and basically married up the skill sets between a recruiter and how they find the best candidate for a job. And actually, it's very much a similar process when you're looking at finding the right tech for your business. You got to know what the business strategy is, what it should, what are the must-haves that this tool should have, should deliver on. And you're going to control the demos, you're going to do the assessment, and you're going to make a decision, right? You're going to purchase something into the business, and just like you hire a candidate, it's a very, very similar process. So you would never just go out on LinkedIn and be like, "Hi, who's the best candidate?" but without giving anyone any context and not saying what kind of business, what kind of role, and what level, and how much you can pay for it, and all these kind of contextualizing things that you need to make a decision. So it's just really funny seeing, this trend coming where sure, it's great to ask and it's great to get a reference, but maybe not at the beginning of the process.
Okay, that's a nice problem.
I remember I was speaking to someone. He's actually on your platform. Actually, I won't reference him, but he was saying that a lot of the time he finds, especially when it comes to like the TA tech part of stuff, the TA stuff, everyone's very much picking what's hot and what's quite cool and trendy at the time, not necessarily what is the best tech to be using. Do you know what I mean? There's
Yes.
like, do you notice that, or do you think that's just a seller's view?
No, I do think that is pretty accurate. I mean, it's also, it's about awareness, right? Like, how can you capture someone's attention to know about your product? That's one thing. That's what our database helps with, getting people, getting products in front of people to see that they consider this product. And, the companies that have the biggest buzz are usually the ones that have a lot of budget, a lot of marketing, teams. They go to events, they're there, they're hot because, they've got money to make themselves hot. That doesn't mean they're the only solution on the market. So I do think there is that trend going on, especially in rec tech. It's big, it's got a lot of investment. If anyone knows in the business, at least my experience, the recruitment tech is what gets funded, not much else. At least you have to work a lot harder to get the other tech funded. Yeah, definitely the hot products are on a bit of a snowball.
And how are people meant to cut through that? Like, obviously you've got a solution for this, but how are people trying to cut through that? What do you think they have to start thinking about?
I think it comes down to, it's the same, really, like, especially if you're in recruitment, like you have this skill set already. You do that when you look for candidates. You don't just go for like that hot referred candidate, the hot topic, hot pick of the team, right? And say, oh, this person, we know them, they're great. They might be great and this tool might be great. But, going back to like, what does the business need? Look at the assessment criteria and set that up and really like match requirements. I think that's, something not done to a very deep extent. And we see these, like, again, the LinkedIn post, you see this in that people go to an event and they see a brand and they go, great, I'll talk to them. And that's the only company they talk to. So I think being more aware that there is this, just because you know about it doesn't mean it's the only thing out there, making sure there's a business reason to have this tech, not just that'll help you with your business case and getting approval, but also just, making sure you discover what's out there in more of a holistic picture before you go down too far down the rabbit hole.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And so we're going to talk about metrics for HR development today. So let's say that you're looking for a tech in HR development. What are the kind of questions that you would recommend asking yourself?
HR tech development. So you're talking like developing
like for
talent in the
performance
business.
review and
Yeah.
specifically how you measure the value of an employee and how you make sure that their skills are valued and upgraded in time. So all the text that enables that. What in your experience is that a different approach from recruitment, for example?
It's not a different approach in that you still need to get requirements, you still need to match to your business. Maybe what's a little bit different is deciding how you do, like the policy around or the framework around how you do performance management, how you do talent management in your business. Like if you don't know that, don't go looking for like a tool. And also, if you do have something in mind, be ready to be flexible because there's no tool that's going to do exactly what you want. And there's no point in reinventing the wheel as well. So if there's, you've got to marry this is what we want as a business. This is kind of like, we need to maybe like give a little bit here, adjust a little bit there. Then there's definitely going to be tech that can support you. Where I see a lot of people not finding the right solutions, maybe because they're very rigid in the structure they have and they're not willing to change, which can work if you find that one tech that does your exact process, or they just don't have a process, or they don't have a very thorough process. They don't have a philosophy around how they do talent management. Are they skills based? Do they do career advancement? How do they do performance? Is it linked to compensation? How is it done? How often is it done? Do we do 360s? Do you do them at the pace that everyone wants to just go in and do it whenever they feel like it, or do you structure it in cycles? There's so many questions when it comes to that. So if you're going to get tech, like, step back. How do you do this as a business? Does this serve the business need? Does it serve the business strategy? Should we be looking at this now? And then, you should also have a tech roadmap alongside your people strategy, right? And your tech, sorry, not just a tech roadmap, but also a people roadmap around initiatives that align and need to come first in that kind of investment space.
And I had one last question for you as well. Thanks for that, Jesse. Are you seeing any, obviously with all this AI tools and the ability for people to be able to create tools these days is just like, they're just churning out like this. Is there any particular area you would say there's a trend, like one particular sector? Because you were saying you've broken them down into different like verticals, I suppose. Have you seen anything kind of like accelerating or new emerging kind of areas?
So definitely emerging is the sourcing space, or not emerging, but like it's really, really being focused on, because sourcing is one of those things where it's data oriented. Like, how can you match and how can you source from all these different sources? How can you bring it all together, analyze the data, and bring back relevant, candidates? And that sourcing space is really, really big, especially with AI. Like, everyone's got an AI sourcing tool, it feels like. Now, we have to be careful with things like the AI Act and how that impacts businesses. Like, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not going to go into it, but it's something that, should be thought about. There are tools you can use, and you should just make sure you use them in a way that is in alignment with that if you're in Europe, especially. But yeah, there's definitely a trend in this sourcing space. There's a lot going on there. I think we have 20 something tools in that just now, and we could add more and more and more if we wanted to. We're slowly building it up, but there's a lot in that space.
It doesn't surprise me.
Thank you for that.
It's something that can be, and you know why? It's because something that a human can do, but is much slower at, right? We can't process the same amount of data that AI can. And that's where AI can help with all these, like, it can automate, it can move, data from here to there, it can like populate and stuff when you get these agents going. And then you've got the AI that takes data and analyzes it, and, takes lots of things in and comes to a conclusion or a suggested conclusion. And I think that's where, we can benefit from it straight away, but of course with caution. And think about what tech you're going to put in before using it, not just the hot topic or the hot tech of the day. We like really look into what it is that you need for your business.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, thank you for that, Jesse. Thank you for doing another one of these.
I hope that was insightful. I'd love some feedback from your audience too, so we can keep these relevant. I'd love to come again if you'll have me, and I will again be at this Christmas event, so everyone should be there. It's for a great cause, so I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, we're going to chat soon. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Jesse.
Thanks a lot.
Bye, everyone.
Jesse. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye. There we go.
Well, so we can see that the market is clearly in a revolution. So I think that it's not about the tools, but it's about where you want to go. John, you're really
agreed.
In any field. Maybe that's not only relevant to HR, but we know HR, so we'll stick to it. But I'm confident that a tool is only as good as the road that you put it on. Does it make sense? Like, if you don't know where you want to go, if you don't know what you're looking for example, if we're talking HR development, if you don't know exactly, if you don't have a proper goal about what you want to do in terms of recruitment, you don't know where you want to bring your recruitment department, what you want them to bring to the company, then no tool is going to help you. So that you really have to think that through before. And that's why we wanted to talk about impact,
Exactly. And I think this is just to your point about that. You can give anyone a tool, right? It doesn't mean they know how to use it properly. You give me a hammer and you give me a screw, give me a drill. I can do some DIY, but it's not going to be as good as a professional or somebody that knows what they're doing with it, right? So you shouldn't be leaving me with that. The point is that you have to make sure you know what you're using it for, why you're using it, and what outcomes do you want, right? And as you say, what impact is that gonna bring? And we got onto this topic a lot because we were talking about, everyone talks about the same old metrics all the time: time to hire, quality of hire, skills-based hiring, and we started talking and exploring what we were calling time to productivity, and we were thinking like, how quickly can somebody get up and running? But then you went into the research that was more around like time to impact, right? And
yes,
also
yes, yes.
all of the other
Kind of
skills
like
around
time
this.
to impact.
Yeah,
You know,
I like
I
time
mean,
to impact.
I mean, between time to productivity and time to impact, even though it's not exactly the same, it's slightly the same, but I think there's a bettering to time to impact, and especially if you're an HR manager, an HR director, and you want to go talk to operational manager, an executive committee member, then just, you know, any stakeholder will understand immediately when you're talking about time to
Yes.
impact.
Of course, because they're always talking about this insight. If you look at this kind of language when you're like in the comics or in your kind of like exec meetings and this type of stuff, board meetings, everything is about that. How is it going to affect this? What impact's it going to have by doing X, Y, and Z? And if we can kind of bring that into the HR space, I think this is only a good thing. But so tell us a little bit more about this, because I've been looking forward to this chat. Tell me.
Yeah, I was too. So actually, you know, we only have a 25 minutes ahead of us, so we're not gonna be able to do something as thorough as I'd like. But there are a few metrics that have been tested and uncovered, and metrics that really change the game about HR development when you think about impact. So the idea behind that is we used to have the idea that when you measure the quality of hire, for example, which could be the quality of the people hired, actually, when you measure it, you put the weight of that metrics on the recruiter's shoulders. You know, it's something that you see very often. And whereas we know for sure, thanks to science and operational measures, that recruitment can never count for more than 50% in terms of predictions and success of what's going to happen for the people that you hire, because there are so many things in terms of onboarding, communication, environment, and even personal stuff. Too many variables that have an impact on that. So the question is, how can we measure the value of the people who've been hired? Because this is what we want to do in the end. When we're talking here, we want to measure the value of the people we've hired and the fit they have with the company. And so the idea of measuring the impact that they have is a great metric. So the question behind that is, how can you measure the impact that they have? There are three different metrics for that. There are a few different concepts. I don't want to overcomplicate stuff, but let's go back to something. Do you remember how long is the life cycle of a skill? Because we talk a lot about skill-based hiring and we mentioned that. Remember the duration?
2.5 years, right?
2.5 years in average. That's crazy. It means because the market is evolving so quickly that skills need to evolve quickly. It doesn't mean that after 2.5 years, the skill is just dead. Just means that.
No, but that's even the average, right?
Yes,
this is the average, yeah. Which means that there's going to be some that are a lot less than that, which is crazy too, right?
Absolutely. And the shortest life cycles, I bet, are linked to the skills that are directly related to tools, because tools evolve so much. And so we could ask ourselves, what's the value of an employee if it's not thanks to what they bring with their skills? So then you might go back, to this the old trend about the soft skills or the social skills. Like, does that matter? Because it's good to know what to do, but you have to let people know that you can do it as well. But still, that's not enough. So we need this technical skills and we need the social skills. But how do we determine the value of an employee within the company? So with the two ingredients that we just quoted, like technical skills and social skills, we're just gonna add this third ingredient, which is impact. And so if we can imagine that all the skills have a short life cycle, then we can just dismiss them and think about the impact, because skills are just a mean to an end. And so if it's short, let's just focus on the end. So the end is the impact in terms of efficiency and quality on the business, personally. So we're just going to keep the first variable that is called direct productivity output. So we can call that DPO. I know that DPO is not a cool acronym because it's something, there's something similar GDPR wise, but that's how it's called. So direct productivity output. And you can measure it thanks to different KPIs. So such as, for example, we're talking about the social skills, but what does it really bring? It means, because social skills, again, it's a mean to an end. So what's the end here? The end is how a person can contribute to the innovation. Like how do you assess the engagement of an employee in innovative project, their leadership to make initiative go further. This is a direct contribution to innovation. So this is not a means, this is an output. This is an impact. Then there's something else about the social skills. It's the value of the relationships, because of course, someone who managed to build strong relationships within a company, pardon my French accent when I say relationships. I know that it must be horrible to hear. So someone who's managed to build strong relationships within a company, we know that has value, because we know that accelerates things, that enables projects, that facilitates decisions. So there's value in it. So it's easy to define the total strength of relationships that an employee can have within a company, because lots of companies are getting used to a measure of feedback studies and NPS. So we could imagine like 360 degrees feedbacks to assess the value of relationships. But then, okay, this is where we're going to do some more mathematics. If you add the direct productivity output, the contribution to innovation, and the value of the relationship, then you get the sum of everything an employee brings to the table. So maybe I didn't define enough direct productivity output. Actually, direct productivity output is what you bring. I know that productivity is not a sexy term, and it's some people don't like it at all, but still, it's what do you bring in terms of creation of value operationally, like in terms of money, in terms of creation of something, no matter what you do. For example, if you
something for a salesperson, it could be the number of deals closed. For an engineer, it could be something like or developer, the amount of code to production that's been pushed, or a product engineer, how many features or stories have been and stuff, right?
Absolutely. So behind that, there's the idea that in the end, we have to accept that if we pay people salary, it's because we know that they bring value in return. So we can't be shy of that. We have to be able to say that. And I know it might be a tough topic, because for example, we're in France. I'm French. I know that this is a topic that people are very shy about. So we prefer to talk about performance without naming money, but in the end, output is a direct contribution to the company results. So let's imagine that you have an employee that brings like 200,000 euros in direct productivity, creates 50,000 euros in innovation, and has an added value in terms of relationships of 30,000 euros. Well, you can imagine that this employee, you can already calculate the cost and the value that he brings. So for example, you add everything, you take the salary and what it costs. Again, this is not a nice word, but sorry, I'm French. I don't have all the different maybe variations that in English that I could have. But so how much it costs? So let's imagine that it costs 1200,000 euros. So then we can say that with that calculation is positive by 1,600,000. No, not 16. Sorry, 160,000 euros. And say if you're not lost with this calculation, because it's just an example, we just calculated a new metric, and this is called total human capital value. Again, this is a holistic metric. I know that you like that word.
So it sounds like, as we're talking about this, I imagine people might be listening, and if you're listening now or later, you might be thinking, God, this sounds great. How the hell do we actually implement this? How are we actually meant to capture this type of information, right? But this could be something that should be set up in terms of part of the employee life cycle, right? Or the employee journey, like how their candidate, employee experience, right?
And go on, sorry.
I was just saying it should be a part of that journey. It should be set up. And to capture this type of information, if you have an HRIS, you can easily capture it in there, right? Like you can easily have something there that you should be able to follow this type of stuff throughout. But you just need to be very clear about that first part, which is what's the immediate time to impact, right? Like the very beginning part, because you want to see how quickly somebody can ramp up. And then over time, what you're talking about is the overall kind of like contribution, right? Like how much are they contributing to the business? How much value they add in, all that type of stuff. So this might sound...
This is defining impact. This idea is, we're not saying this is how impact should be defined, but you have to define it. So this is just one of the ways. And I like what you say when you say that it can be part of an employee life cycle, because all the time spent by HR and managers on tools like nine boxes, like where you're trying to assess the performance of people and you put them in box, whereas you can actually measure it, and so following it through time in a very objective way, while still taking into account other criteria that matter.
Can I give you an example of this, right? So there was a friend of mine who I used to work with. He's kind of related. And what was happening was they were hiring people, they were hiring chefs inside of a restaurant, right? And what was happening, every time they kept losing chefs, okay? And they couldn't understand why they were losing the chefs. And what was happening is in restaurants, they have what are covers. So the total number of kind of like meals that you provide and tables that you have that people are there. And they were losing people. And this kind of like productivity or impact they were having was starting to affect their revenue, right? Because they never had a chef, and then the quality was going down. People weren't very happy. And they discovered that what had happened is that they had put in an oven, a brand new grill and oven, right? And nobody knew how to use it. So the day in which, the moment in which that chef had to work on their own without a chef, like somebody next to them, shadowing them, so they had to fire it up, they didn't have a clue how to get it started. And they just, because they were in such demand, they were like, this is too complicated for me, I'm gone. And they were leaving. And they didn't, but because they had their whole of their journey mapped out, they could identify the exact point, exactly why people were leaving, getting that, and then they could fix that problem. And I think that having that mapped out really helps you, because you can have that holistic view. You can see exactly where things are going wrong, where things are going right. And if you can start to apply this, you can start to track it over time as well to see what's working, what's not working, and adding the extra bits of context, right?
Absolutely. Can you imagine that in your HRIS tool, you could have like this formula, like say, okay, direct productivity output, contribution to innovation, and value of the relationships. You have all that. Just it's three things that are measured. And again, it's not hard to measure, because direct productivity output, it can be any KPIs or tangible outcomes that you decide. And then contribution to innovation might be the trickiest one, I think, because depending on how you are in terms of what you define in terms of innovation, that might be the one that requires one more step. But then the value of relationship, it's very easy, because lots of companies do that already. They don't call it like that. But if you have that, and like you say, you measure it over time, you can say during a performance review to an employee, listen, you're very good on this thing, but we can see that you should improve, you should work more on the relationships that you're trying to build, because we could see that this is where you're lacking. And maybe it's not the strong suit of an employee. And maybe we can also acknowledge that, but then we have to tell them, okay, but you need to compensate in terms of the values that you can bring. And this is just having honest discussion that cuts through all the let's say, the dishonest stuff that we might say because we don't know how to say, how to give a feedback. Because this is, if you say that, this is just numbers, and you can just focus on how you can give and share this information instead of just trying to think about which arguments you're gonna give, to try to focus on the right areas. Numbers don't lie. Yeah, of course, if you choose the right number.
And I've got a question for you. Do you think by having these type of metrics in place, that allows you to identify objectively where there could be actual problems? Because sometimes, I listen to, I'm a bit of a fanboy for elite sport and special forces, right? I like to listen to lots of podcasts about these. Just it's my kind of like disassociation. Disassociation is the wrong word. What word am I looking for?
Well, it's a dream life we didn't have.
Yeah, okay. So my dream life of being in the special forces,
the one where you think you're James Bond
rolling around on the floor. But no, and they talk about that. They talk about that a lot. It's like sometimes you have the right person, but they're not in the right environment or in the right team. They've got these people that have gone through this unbelievably hard selection process to get to this particular point. We think how hard it is to make recruitment for someone in our team, and you hear about these people who are like having hell for 6 months just to get a job. Like they're being put through hell to get this job. But then these people can arrive, and you have like these special force groups, let's say in the American ones, for example, and they don't quite fit, right? It's not quite right, but it's not necessarily the individual, it's not necessarily the team, it's something else around it, right? So my point is does this help reveal the true problems, or is it just presenting that there's a misalignment or something's not quite working? Because it isn't always about saying you're the problem or we're the problem. It's something's not quite working, right?
That's actually a technique when you want to have a conversation. Whereas it's an easy and a hard one. It's always better to put the stuff, out of your stuff. How can I say? Like dissociate. I'm gonna use the same word. Dissociate yourself from the topic. Because in the end, it's not about the people. It's about how we can make stuff better. So let's talk about the stuff. Let's talk about the work. Let's talk about the outcomes. And outcomes don't lie. If outcomes are good, we need to know why. It's not just like we have an outstanding employee. Yeah, of course, some people we think they're outstanding, but what makes that they're outstanding? Because if we can manage to understand why, maybe we can replicate that. And not just think that they're super. Of course, you have people who have different abilities. I'm a psychologist, so I'm not gonna say anything against that. We are not all capable of the same things with the same efforts. I say this sometimes. For some people require more efforts in some fields. We all have our strengths and our weaknesses. That's even if weaknesses is not a word that we like to say in HR. Let's say some areas where we require more effort, but still. If we can understand why people are so successful within a specific environment, within your company, then it's super powerful. And at the same time, it will allow you to understand why people could be underperforming. But underperforming compared to what? Compared to the impression that their N+1 has, or compared to a KPI that even the employees don't agree with. If you have a formula that is really based on what's happening and then the discussion is much easier. And maybe you can tweak that formula and decide other KPIs that suit your organization better. What matters, what we want to tell today is focus on the impact. Don't focus on the means. Impact first. And when you've defined what an impact is, then you can work on how to get there. But if you haven't defined what the impact of your employees is on the company, then the same. There's no point in talking about recruitment if we don't know how the people can have an impact. Then we can't discuss the skills. We can't
exactly
clearly. And this is why we wanted to talk about HR development.
And the thing is, right, is that what you're basically saying is right. It's someone's, when should I start doing this? Oh, we haven't been doing it for ages. It's like the best time to start measuring something is now, right? That's the if you haven't been doing it before, the best time is right now. And over time, you'll start to create your own baseline, right? And then you can start to compare against your own data. And obviously, without having external data, your own data is a good benchmark, right? And all you can do is improve. And if you look at companies like Amazon, like them or loathe them, they've always had that kind of like leveling up every single time, bar raising, right? But you need to have a baseline to work from in the first place. So at first, just start capturing this data. It'd be very, very easy to do if you have a HRIS. Just define these things. What you think is being productive. What do you think it would be a meaningful thing to measure if somebody was achieving that or not? And then just, as you said, put these little tabs inside people's fields inside these people's profile cards, and just start to capture it over time. And in 1 year's time, you can have a look at this historically, and you can start to see what's working and what's not.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a really easy thing to take away from today. But we should share something about this, right? We should share maybe a cheat sheet or something for people.
Yes. Well, we'll put something on the website. And if I may, it's easy, but it's not that easy to define stuff. What you need to, there's still a tough discussion. The process is easy, if I may, but what you need is defining stuff. And this is the first step you need to do. Once you've done that, everything is easy. But you need to define stuff, and this is something that seems easy, but actually it isn't, because all the people within an organization have a different idea of what things mean and their expectations. And this is actually, one of the issues that you can have. Anyone here who's done a recruitment process knows that if you haven't aligned on the expectations before starting the recruitment process, and it just goes to hell because everyone's gonna want something different, and
exactly.
So you're not gonna. So that's how you.
And you can't keep changing this.
Exactly. So you have to define. Okay, what's a contribution? What's innovation to us? What's a direct productivity output in our organization in this specific environment for this type of job? And so I think that's something that once you've done that, it's very easy to manage, and it's much easier to anything that we could see in the market at the moment. All the HR development KPIs are very difficult to assess, very difficult, and require a lot of effort and continuous effort and new calculations and so on. This one, it's brand new, so you still need to define stuff. But once it's done, it's just straight line, straight road. So before we go, I was asking myself, what do you think about this one? Contribution to innovation. What could be a good example that we could give on that? Do you have an idea?
Do I have an idea of this?
That's the one I don't have an example for, because it really depends, I think, on the organization and the environment. And I had a chance to work in and with different companies that were very open to innovation. So this one seems very natural to me, but I might be wrong.
Do you mean the actual metric itself as a whole with all three elements?
Yeah. I could imagine a dozen different ways to measure that.
Yeah, I think if you
maybe something in my mind.
I mean, if you were to take, I don't know if this example really works, right? I mentioned it before, but if you were to say you were to take a salesperson, right, in the sales team, and one is very easy to measure how many deals they did, right? They use sales because it's an easy one, right? Number one, right? That's good. But then you could start to look at what kind of they might have been doing some growth hacking, right? They created a little sub team and they worked on a project and did some growth hacking to try and generate more leads or something like this. And then that has a direct contribution to innovation and growth, and obviously expanding the knowledge of expanding the reach of the company. And then when it comes to the actual relationships, this is the only bit that I find really difficult to define, right? Because how do you get that information of, I don't know, Katie comes into the office, you're sitting down, you do the sales meeting, and afterwards she's very quiet, and the manager or one of the people in the team come over and said, or sends a little Slack, are you okay? Do you want to go for a coffee? And they go for a coffee, they realize something's happening outside of work, but they come in after that chat feeling a little bit better, feeling a bit supported. Now they've come into the office and they feel good, right? How do you measure that? Like, how do you get that? That's a very, very difficult thing. And I think that's very relevant to the relationships, right? But I think this goes into a whole other hour of discussion. But
again, the value of the relationships, you can get them. Yes, your example makes sense, but you can get them with an NPS. Well, I think that we've hit
we're out of time.
Yeah, and so we're gonna have to, stick the discussion for another time. But that was a great chat. Thank you for that. Before we go, the Christmas special, December 17th. Please register and come have fun with us and come.
And share, just if you have any friends or colleagues or anyone in your team that you think could be interested, it's going to be on the 17th of December. It could be while people are sourcing or they're doing their admin. Have it on in the background. We'll be on all day. There'll be something for everyone. So please share it as much as you can, because the more people that we can bring, the more money we can raise for the. Thanks for coming, everyone.
And if you're watching this replay on YouTube, then all the links that we mentioned will be in the description. Please don't hesitate to look at our other videos and like and subscribe, because this is how you can help us. Have a great day. Exactly. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye, everyone.